All right. Hello, everybody. Whether it's your morning or your evening, very warm welcome. I am Eva Hussein, Director at Polaron. Today, we're going to be talking about 5 reasons to pursue your Polish European citizenship right now. And I'm very, very pleased to announce that we have our senior citizenship specialist, Marta Daszkiewicz-Daniszewska, all the way in Poland with us. And we've got about 15 minutes, so not a lot of time, but we wanted to try this out. And let me tell you, we've had a massive interest in this session. We had 71 people registered and many more on Facebook. So I am a little bit nervous, but let's do it. So hi, Marta, firstly. Hi.
Hello, hello.
Really
I
good to
really
see
enjoy
you.
this meeting.
Wonderful, wonderful. So what we wanted to talk about is firstly a few updates. Firstly, what's happening in Poland? Tell us a little bit more about how you're going, and is everybody in good spirits? Is everyone at work? What's happening?
We have current situation in Poland. It's quite difficult now, but we are on our way to get out of this, I think. And many people work from home, and it looks like we have spring, and I think we are in good spirits now.
Things are improving. Wonderful, wonderful. So I know that all of you guys have been working remotely since February. And I know that you've been dealing with the Polish government. Can you tell us if there are any delays or what's happening on the government front?
The current situation changed the way they are working in the voivodeship offices, because they are working from home like us. But as far as I know, and from my observation, I can say that the timelines should be like ever. Yeah,
like always. Yeah,
like always. Yeah.
Okay, because really, when you deal with the Polish government, by law, most government officials have 30 days to deal with requests. Is that right?
Yes.
Normally, yeah. So they still keep into those deadlines. There's no massive delays or anything, yeah?
No. They are trying to keep this date.
Okay, that's really good to hear. And just moving on from that subject, I was going to ask you just very briefly in a couple of sentences, and I know it's very hard to do, but how does one qualify for Polish citizenship? So, of course, you have to have Polish heritage. Can you maybe tell us a bit more about eligibility for Polish citizenship through descent?
Yeah, like you said, there is no easy answer to this question. As far as we have to confront someone's family history with the provisions of 4 Polish citizenship acts, and 3 of them are formally out of date now. Okay. So what I want to say is that we, in many cases, we have to use regulations which are now 100 years old. But without going into the details, we can say that when someone's ancestor lived in Poland after 1920, and when I say lived, I mean had permanent place of residence here in Poland, right, we can be pretty sure that this person had Polish citizenship. Okay. And all we have to do further is to check, is to establish if this person didn't lose his Polish citizenship, and if his descendants acquired this citizenship after him and also didn't lose it. Okay. So that's really interesting, because what you essentially, I think you're saying, is that having a Polish ancestor is one thing. The second thing is that we have to be able to place them in Poland after 1920, when the first set of laws was established. And also we have to prove who they are in relation to that ancestor. And by exclusion, I think that's the term that you use, you have to exclude certain things that may have happened after they immigrated. So for example, if they served in a foreign army,
that might
Exactly.
affect it, or if they acquired another country's citizenship, that might affect it, things like that. Yeah.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay. And the people that left, or whose ancestors left Poland before 1920, they're kind of in a grey area. Would you agree?
Yes, but this kind of people, we have to look at every case,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and we have to know details about this case because it's very hard to establish the Polish citizenship then.
For people that left too soon, because there was no
Yeah.
Poland, it was partitioned, and there was no Polish
Yes.
citizenship. So people may be of Polish heritage, Polish nationality, Polish background, all kinds of things, are ways you can describe them. But because
Mhm.
there was no legislation, there was no Polish citizenship. So it's harder
Yeah.
to do,
Yes,
yeah?
exactly.
Okay. And can you think of a case of someone that left before 1918, or ancestors left before 1918, and we were still able to prove that they were Polish?
Yes, I can recollect the case like this, but in this case, these people lived abroad, but they came to Poland from time to time.
Okay.
And I found the documents which proved that fact.
Okay. So speaking of documents, that this is another gray area, because people often will ask us and they'll say, well, how do I prove that I have Polish citizenship? And they think of all kinds of documents like a birth certificate, or a document that was issued by a US government or an Australian government or whatever it is. But that's not enough, is it? Can you maybe tell
No,
us what kinds of documents are needed? And again, I know what you hear what you're saying, that every case is different because every story is different, right?
yeah, yeah. It like you said, it depends on the case, but every time, wait, every time it is required to lodge someone's current passport and birth certificate of the applicant, and all the metrical documents which leads to Polish ancestor. And this group of documents serve to prove kinship.
Okay.
And the second group of documents that is required to lodge consists of documents which prove Polish citizenship and the documents which proves lack of losing Polish citizenship.
Okay.
So the most obvious proof of Polish citizenship is, of course, old Polish passport, but we all know that it's very rare document. And it is hard to find it in someone's family archives and also in Polish state archives. So we have to search and use another documents like residential records or army records and so on. And lack of losing Polish citizenship, we have to prove with naturalization certificates from foreign countries and certificates of army service from foreign countries. So it's a wide group of documents.
Right. So in other words, what you're telling us is that the Polish government doesn't give you a list of documents that you have to give them. What they essentially say, show us what documents you have, and we'll tell you if you're
what else can you lodge?
Right. So it is assessed individually and unmarried, and the case officers have some flexibility, I guess. And I think it's fair to say we've been doing this work for about 20 years, and you come yourself from the government background before you started with Polaron, that where the governments can, they will approve your citizenship. So they don't make, sometimes people ask us, that they will say, oh, Poland's very bureaucratic. But, I say, well, compared to what, firstly? And secondly, I think most of the case officers at the Voivodship office will try and get you through if they can. It's just that sometimes they can't because there's not enough documentation, right?
Yes, right. That's right.
Okay.
They are always trying to help, and they are always giving information. What else do they want? But if there's no documents, there's no way to do this.
Right. And through our work, what sometimes happens, and over again, like we'll search all kinds of archives and we speak to all kinds of institutions. And then sometimes, after some months of looking, the client will say, excuse me, my grandma's found a box in the, and then we're like, oh my God, why didn't you tell us this before? But sometimes not finding these documents prompts people to search further, to speak to family history, about family history to their relatives. And I think for a lot of our clients, I have to say, and again, we've been doing this work for a long time, is that they start with wanting a passport, but what happens along the journey is that they really truly reconnect with their heritage. They get to know a lot more about families, because some families were quite secretive, or when they immigrated, they moved on and decided that this is our new life, this is our new homeland, and they never went back. They never had that connection. Yeah. So tell us, who processes Polish citizenship application through Descent? What is the office? Where is it located? What happens?
The right offices is voivodeship offices, and we have 16 voivodeship offices in Poland. But the jurisdiction of the voivodeship offices depends on the place of residence, but in Poland. So if someone never lived in Poland, the right voivodeship office is Mazowian in Warsaw.
So that's Warsaw, yeah. And the application obviously needs to be prepared in Polish. It has to have all the right stamps and translations and all, like Poland loves all that paperwork, of course. And you don't lodge electronically, you have to provide a paper file.
Yeah.
And then what happens when it's submitted?
After we lodge the case, we are waiting for the case number, of course. And after, we can say, 2 months, we have the first information from the voivodeship office about what is going on with the case. Sometimes we have requests for another documents because there's a lack of documents. Sometimes we have to argue with them.
Right. But we're always very polite, right? Yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's right. That's right. We are in the
good books of the voivodeship office. Yeah. Okay, but usually you'll have a person, a case officer that manages your case, so they will send you questions or concerns or ask you to do further research or whatever. So sometimes that goes back and forth for a bit, is what you're saying, essentially. Yeah. And I think to summarize, because we very, very quickly are running out of time, it's unbelievable, is at the end of all of that process, you get a citizenship certificate that says that you are Polish from birth. Is that right? From the day you were born?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So look, we will leave a few minutes for questions, but what I wanted to finish off on is the 5 reasons that we encourage people to consider going through their citizenship applications right now. And one of them is that despite what people might think, there are no queues. There's been like a massive interest in having a second passport. Certainly with us, and everyone thinks that the Polish offices are closed, that nothing's working, but it's actually not true. And we think there's going to be a backlog afterwards. At the moment, as Marta here said, people are working remotely, but they still do come into the office, I think, once a week. And they've put provisions in, to keep everybody safe, but everything's working as usual. So one of the reasons that you should proceed now is to avoid the queues. The second reason, and probably the major reason too, is that a lot of people have a lot of free time on their hands. So if you have that box somewhere at your grandma's house, go and look what's in it. Get those papers out, have a look. And we also think that, when borders open, which could be, anytime, hopefully soon, people will travel. So having a second passport is really beneficial because you don't have to apply for visas, and it's for life. You can pass it on to your children. And the best thing of all, I think, in all of our work is that you can explore your heritage. You can really connect to your roots. Poland's a wonderful place in many, many ways. And I know that Poland sometimes gets a bit bad press about this and that and whatever. I don't get involved in politics, but I think it's an amazing country with amazing people, and what we do is connect people with that heritage and with all that's Polish, including the traditions, the history, the food, the vodka, you know, whatever. So these are my 5 reasons. So what I wanted to do, Marta, is hand over to you just for a very quick summary, maybe of what we talked about. And I know that Andrea might have some questions for us, so we'll hand over to you, and then we'll go to questions.
So what I want to say, I agree with Eva with all words she said, that we are very colorful country in Poland, and we are still working, and everything's here. I think it's going to be okay, and what to say.
I think we're absolutely going to be okay. I'm very optimistic, and I think, you know, the Polish government, for example, with COVID, they've moved in very quickly to protect people, and you know, we'll work with everybody and put in you know, financial support and all kinds of things. So so it's been pretty good. Andrea, questions? Do we have any questions?
Yes, we have a question from the audience. So Nick just sent us a request. He said he tried to go to the Polish consulate where he lives to apply for the Polish citizenship. Unfortunately, they told him that the documentation was not sufficient to apply for the citizenship. So the question is, how do he goes about getting the right documentation? What documents would that include? Does Polaron offer this service?
So I might step in there and answer in affirmative. So yes, absolutely. We love Polish consulates. Absolutely love them. Truly, you know, we have very good relationships with consulates all over the world, and they mostly overworked and understaffed and all of those things, but they're not there to help people with research. So I guess this is where a company like Polaron comes in, where we assist people with everything from start to finish. So to answer Nick's questions, we will first of all check that he's definitely eligible, because our services are guaranteed. So we don't take any cases where we know that people are going to fail. So what Marta was talking about, the 4 sets of legislation, she knows it off by heart. She's truly like one of the most prominent experts in those areas. So she looks very carefully, you know, she understands the law and knows how that applies to every case. And we can tell you whether you qualify or not before you even, you know, invest any money or time in it. And we also know what kinds of documents to find and where to look for them. And consulates, like I said, they're not really there to do that sort of work. So that's why we sometimes step in and assist. And if Nick wants a passport, he knows where we are, right?
We received another question from Tim. What if you cannot find any documentation to prove your Polish ancestry? How difficult it is to find the necessary documents?
I think it's a bit of a myth. You know, people often say, oh, everything was destroyed in Poland. And I'm sure that Marta here will agree with me that it's actually not true. I think apart from Warsaw, that was completely, you know, 95% of it was flattened. Poland's got very good records for the most part. They're fragmented, they're not digitalized, and you have to know where to look. But it's very rarely that we don't find things on people. And if we don't find it, it's usually because there's an issue of identity. So we have had cases where people simply lied about who they are, or sometimes didn't know, you know, like there are orphans that were born during the war or whatever. But it's very rarely, would you agree, Marta, that we don't find things on people?
Yes, I agree with you. I can say that's true, that state archives in Poland have many documents, and I have to say that in the current situation, they are working in archives and they are scanning many documents, and many documents goes in digital form now. So it will be easier to look for these documents now.
Yeah, so they're using this time the archives that they're not open to the public to digitalize things. And I think, look, Poland's a country that's 1,000 years old. You can imagine what resources they have and how many documents and papers and birth certificates. So it's really not possible to have everything digitalized. A lot of these records sit in books, like very old books that you have to go through manually. So what we do is do a lot of manual research, and we work with archives very closely. But in answer to the question, the best thing to start is your own paperwork. So start with your own birth certificate, your parents' birth certificate, because a lot of the time that information is on it. You just have to know how to read it. And your local archives, if you're based in Australia, National Archives of Australia. If you're based in other countries, then each has has their own archives where you can look. And sometimes you do have to read between the lines, but it's not often that we find families that you cannot find anything on someone.
We received a couple of more questions regarding cost and also compulsory military service. I'm not sure if you guys have some time to answer to those questions.
Yeah, I can answer both of them. The cost depends really, and not that I'm trying to be evasive, but it depends on what we start with and how many generations we have to go back to, and what we have to look for. So we always encourage people to try it themselves, as in, to try and gather documentation themselves. So whether it's from the family members or, whatever, because that really reduces the cost drastically. And we can then, we don't charge for things that we don't have to do. And it's also easier and quicker to do. What we do is, once we understand someone's eligibility, we provide them with a quote, and that quote is fixed. We don't charge hourly rates or out-of-pocket expenses. It includes everything from start to finish, and the outcome is guaranteed. I would love to answer that question, but I simply can't, because it depends, is my answer. As to the military service, look, it was actually scrapped in Poland in 2010, so it's no longer compulsory. And when you're pursuing citizenship through descent, you don't have to speak the language, you don't have to live in Poland, you don't have to pay taxes. It's really quite a flexible, arrangement, very, very flexible legislation.
So Nathan was asking if people who had compulsory military service in a foreign country, does it mean that they and their descendants are not eligible?
Mm-hmm. Marta, would you like to ask that question?
It depends when. Because if it was before 1951, we have to check this. We have to look through this. But if it was after 1951, it's nothing to do with eligibility.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just add very quickly what Marta is saying. It depends firstly where and what period of time. Yeah. So there was also people that served in foreign armies, but as long as they were allies to Poland, so for example, US, Australia, so at different times they joined the war efforts. As long as they were not on the enemy side, then Poland doesn't see that as an impediment. But before 1951, which is when the law changed, if people served, or men, sorry, I should say that it exclusively applied to men. If they served in a foreign army, there is a chance that they lost their Polish citizenship.
Thank you. There's no further questions so far.
Beautiful. Can I just say thank you. Firstly to Marta for spending her morning with us. It is afternoon in Melbourne. It's a miserable rainy day, but as you heard, it's already spring in Poland. It probably makes you feel alive and you've had your coffee, so I'm sure you're ready to face your day. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and your time with us. The interest in this has been so high that we're definitely going to do it again. And what we're going to do is have themes or topics that we're going to discuss, so that it's a bit more structured. At the moment, what we did is just told you a little bit more about everything, and it's hard to get your head around maybe some of those things, but this is just an introduction, and if people are interested, we'll do it again. So thank you, Marta. Have a wonderful day, and
Thank you, Eva.
we'll be seeing you. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.